He woke up before sunrise, the thin rays of light sneaking through the cracks of his old paint-chipped window. The small apartment smelled faintly of yesterday's dinner and the dampness from a leaky pipe in the corner. He yawned and rubbed his eyes, knowing he could not afford to waste a single minute. College life was not easy, and he had to balance classes with multiple part-time jobs just to keep the lights on and the fridge from remaining empty. The student worked as a clerk at a local bookstore, spending long hours stacking shelves and helping customers find what they were looking for. It was not glamorous, but it kept him afloat. Every evening he would walk home under the dim streetlights, carrying a bag heavy with textbooks and groceries he could barely afford. His life was a struggle, but he was proud of the little progress he made on his own. Meanwhile, across the city, a 71-year-old woman lived in a mansion that could be described as a fortress of wealth. Tall, imposing gates opened to manicured gardens, and the house gleamed in the morning sun. She had inherited her fortune after decades of hard work and careful investments, and while money was no object to her, she often felt the weight of solitude. Her days were filled with meetings, investments, and charitable work, but at night, the mansion seemed too quiet, almost hollow. Friends and family were distant or long gone, leaving her with an unexpected emptiness. One chilly morning, he arrived at the bookstore, shivering slightly as he set the door open. The bell rang softly and the aroma of coffee and books welcomed him. He greeted the few early customers, arranging a display of new arrivals. Among the morning crowd was a woman unlike anyone he had seen before. She walked slowly, leaning lightly on a cane, her eyes sharp and attentive, scanning the shelves as though she could see every hidden corner of the store. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and he offered a polite smile. She returned it, her gaze thoughtful. She asked him about a book she wanted, one rare and difficult to find. He led her through the aisles, noticing the care with which she examined the books almost reverently. She thanked him, not with the formality of a wealthy woman used to staff, but with a genuine warmth that surprised him. He felt a small spark of connection in that brief encounter, though he quickly dismissed it as a fleeting moment. Over the next few weeks, she began visiting the bookstore more often. Each time, they talked a little longer, discussing literature, philosophy, and even mundane things like the weather or city life. She was curious about him, asking questions not just about the books but about his life. At first, he was hesitant, unsure why someone like her would take an interest in him, a poor student barely scraping by. But her curiosity was sincere, and slowly, he found himself sharing pieces of his life. The long hours, the constant struggle to make ends meet, the small joys he found in simple things. For her, these conversations were a breath of fresh air. She was used to people seeing her only as a wealthy, untouchable figure. Few cared about her thoughts, her opinions, or the quiet loneliness she carried. This young man, with his honest words and unassuming demeanor, fascinated her. There was no flattery, no ulterior motive, just genuine human connection. She found herself looking forward to these visits, even planning her days around the possibility of seeing him. One afternoon, the bookstore was nearly empty when she came in, carrying a small notebook. She asked him if he could help her find a collection of poetry by an obscure author. As they searched together, she mentioned her love for hidden stories, tales that were often overlooked by the world. He listened intently, feeling a sense of admiration he had not expected. There was something about her that felt real, unguarded despite the wealth and status that surrounded her. After finding the book, she invited him to sit and discuss it over coffee. He hesitated, glancing around the store, unsure if he should. But there was a sincerity in her eyes that made him nod. They sat at a small table, sipping their drinks, and talked for hours about life, ambition, and the challenges they had both faced in different ways. He was surprised at how easy it felt to speak with her, how her presence seemed to draw out a part of him that was usually hidden behind caution and worry. As the days turned into weeks, their encounters grew more frequent and more personal. She shared stories from her youth, the obstacles she had overcome to build her fortune, and the moments of joy that few people knew about. He told her about his family, his dreams, and the sacrifices he made to continue his education. They laughed at shared jokes, exchanged thoughtful insights, and gradually a unique bond began to form. It was a connection that neither of them fully understood but both felt deeply. One evening after closing the bookstore, he walked her to the street where her car awaited. The night was cool, and the city lights reflected in her eyes. She paused, looking at him with an intensity that caught him off guard. For a moment, silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken words. Then she smiled, a small, knowing smile, and thanked him for his company. He felt a strange warmth in his chest, a mixture of admiration, curiosity, and an emotion he had not yet named. Their story was far from conventional. A young man struggling to make a life for himself and a woman who had lived decades in a world of wealth and solitude. Yet something in their encounters hinted at the possibility of change, of an unexpected twist in both their lives. The foundation of their relationship was built not on convenience or status, but on mutual respect and the rare human need to be seen and understood. As he returned to his apartment that night, he thought about her, about the way she had listened, the way she had genuinely cared about what he said. He wondered why life had brought them together. Two people from such different worlds, yet seemingly drawn by a force neither could explain. He lay in bed, the city sounds faint in the background, and allowed himself a rare moment of hope and curiosity, wondering what the future might hold if this connection continued to grow. Meanwhile, in her mansion, she looked out at the city from her high windows, reflecting on the young man she had met. She was used to people admiring her wealth, her influence, and her accomplishments. Few had ever spoken to her as he did, with genuine interest and openness. She felt an unfamiliar excitement, a gentle stirring of emotion she had long thought dormant. She wondered about him, about the life he led, and felt a pull toward something she could not yet name. Days passed, each encounter adding layers to their understanding of each other. Friends and acquaintances noticed the change in her demeanor, commenting on the lightness in her step, the smile that seemed to linger longer than before. For him, the anticipation of seeing her added a spark to his otherwise monotonous days. He began to think about possibilities beyond survival, beyond just getting by, considering what it might mean to be part of her world. Even briefly, it was in this slow unfolding, this gentle intertwining of lives, that the first seeds of something unexpected were planted. Neither could predict what lay ahead, but both felt the undeniable pull of human connection that neither money nor circumstance could explain. The story of a poor student and a wealthy woman had only just begun, but already it was reshaping their worlds in subtle, powerful ways. Weeks passed, and the visits to the bookstore became almost routine. Yet, each time he saw her, there was a sense of anticipation that made his heart race. She began to invite him to her mansion, explaining that she wanted to show him the private library and rare collections she had amassed over the decades. He hesitated at first, aware of the rumors about wealthy people and the caution he had learned to keep around strangers. But curiosity won over, and he accepted her invitation. The first time he stepped into her mansion, he felt like he had entered another world. The marble floors gleamed under the soft chandeliers, and the walls were lined with paintings and books he had only ever read about. It was overwhelming, yet there was a warmth to the place that made him feel slightly at ease. She guided him through the corridors, telling stories behind each painting, each artifact, and the history of the mansion itself. He listened, captivated not just by the wealth but by the life she had led and the experiences she had gathered. Over tea in a sunlit room overlooking her gardens, she began to talk more openly about her life. She spoke of the losses she had endured, the struggles she had faced even with wealth, and the loneliness that often accompanied her success. He was struck by her vulnerability, a side she rarely showed anyone. In that moment, the barriers between them seemed smaller, and he realized she was not just a figure of wealth but a human being with emotions, fears, and hopes. Days later, she invited him for a private walk in the gardens. The autumn leaves crunched under their feet as they walked along the carefully maintained paths. The crisp air seemed to encourage honesty, and for the first time she asked him personal questions about his life. He spoke of his family, the financial struggles, and the challenges of balancing work and study. He also admitted his dreams not just for money, but for a life where he could make a difference, however small. She listened intently, nodding and occasionally offering thoughtful advice. She shared her admiration for his perseverance and intelligence, explaining that she saw qualities in him that few others noticed. Their conversations grew deeper, moving beyond superficial topics to a place where they could be themselves. He found himself thinking about her constantly, the way she smiled when sharing a story, the sound of her voice, the genuine interest she showed in him. It was confusing and exciting all at once. One evening, after a particularly long day at the bookstore, he returned home to find a note slipped under his door. It was an invitation to dinner at her mansion the following night. His hands trembled slightly as he read it. Part of him wondered what her intentions were, but another part of him felt a sense of honor and curiosity. He dressed carefully the next evening, unsure of how to behave in such a grand environment. The dinner was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The table was set with fine china, crystal glasses, and a variety of dishes that made his head spin. Yet the atmosphere was surprisingly relaxed. She spoke with warmth, encouraging him to enjoy the meal and the conversation. They talked about books, music, and shared stories from their pasts. The night stretched on, filled with laughter and moments of quiet reflection. He realized he felt comfortable in her presence, despite the wealth gap and the societal expectations that might have otherwise held them apart. As the evening drew to a close, she led him to a quiet room filled with antiques and personal mementos. There was a seriousness in her eyes he had not seen before. She spoke softly, explaining that she had enjoyed his company immensely and valued the honesty and kindness he brought into her life. Then, to his astonishment, she proposed marriage. The words hung in the air, almost surreal. He froze, caught between shock and disbelief. A marriage proposal from someone so far removed from his world in age, wealth, and experience felt impossible to process. He searched for words, unsure how to respond. She reassured him gently, saying she was not interested in control or convenience, but in companionship and trust. She explained that she saw qualities in him she admired, and that she wanted to share the rest of her life with someone who could understand her in ways few others could. Conflicting emotions flooded through him. Part of him felt unworthy, questioning if he was capable of such a responsibility. Another part of him felt curious and honored, recognizing that her proposal was rooted in genuine respect and affection, not just the superficial trappings of wealth. The decision weighed heavily on him, but the sincerity in her eyes made it clear that this was not a game or a test. He spent the night thinking about the proposal, walking the quiet streets near his apartment, trying to make sense of his feelings. He considered the opinions of his friends and family, the potential gossip, and the challenges of marrying someone so much older. Yet he also reflected on the joy he felt in her presence, the shared understanding, and the chance to step into a life that was both mysterious and inspiring. After days of contemplation, he decided to accept, not for wealth, not for comfort, but because he genuinely cared for her and wanted to explore the unique bond that had formed between them. When he returned to her mansion to give his answer, she received him with a gentle smile, a mixture of relief and quiet excitement. Their decision to marry was simple in words but monumental in meaning, marking a turning point in both of their lives. The wedding was modest, intimate, and devoid of fanfare. Close friends and a few family members attended, many of whom were surprised by the match. Some offered congratulations while others whispered doubts, questioning the authenticity of their connection. Yet they moved forward undeterred, understanding that the essence of their union was based on respect, understanding, and companionship, rather than societal expectation. In the days following the wedding, the student began adjusting to life in her mansion. The grandeur of the estate, the luxury he had never known, and the staff accustomed to serving a wealthy household were initially overwhelming. He stumbled through simple tasks, unsure of protocol, and often felt like an intruder in a world so different from his own. Yet she encouraged him gently, guiding him without judgment, and creating a space where he could learn and adapt at his own pace. He began exploring the mansion more, discovering libraries filled with rare books, art collections with stories behind every piece, and private rooms that spoke of her history and experiences. Each discovery was a lesson, not just in wealth or culture, but in the life of someone who had built an empire from intelligence, perseverance, and careful decision-making. He admired her not just for her fortune, but for the life she had lived, the obstacles she had overcome, and the quiet dignity she maintained despite it all. She, in turn, enjoyed showing him her world, sharing memories that had been tucked away for decades. She revealed the charities she supported quietly, the personal projects she undertook to improve lives, and the challenges she had faced in maintaining her independence and influence. For her, It was a relief to have someone who could appreciate her story without judgment or envy. She found joy in teaching him, in seeing his curiosity and respect for the life she had created. Their days settled into a rhythm of learning, laughter, and gradual understanding. He assisted with daily tasks, offering fresh perspectives, and she guided him through her world with patience and warmth. They shared meals, discussed books and current events, and began to understand the nuances of each other's personalities. Their connection deepened not through wealth or necessity, but through shared experience, trust, and mutual admiration. Friends and neighbors watched the unusual couple with curiosity, some skeptical, others quietly supportive. But inside the mansion, the student and the millionaire woman focused on each other, slowly building a relationship that defied conventional expectations. Each day he learned more about her, and she in turn discovered more about him. The age gap, the differences in wealth and experience, and the judgments of others became less significant compared to the genuine human connection they shared. As part 2 of their story drew to a close, both of them realized that their lives were changing in ways they had not anticipated. The student was stepping into a world of privilege and history, not merely for comfort but to understand and support the woman who had chosen him as her companion. She, on the other hand, was opening her life to someone who brought energy, insight, and authenticity, enriching her days with warmth she had not felt in years. The stage was set for discoveries, surprises, and moments that would challenge and strengthen the bond they had begun to nurture. Life in the mansion became both familiar and mysterious. The student spent his days learning the routines, helping with small tasks, and getting to know the vast estate. Despite the comfort and luxury, he often felt a sense of wonder, as if each hallway and room held secrets waiting to be uncovered. He admired her discipline, intelligence, and generosity, but he also sensed that there was more to her than she had shown. One morning, while helping her organize a study, he noticed a small door partially hidden behind a tall bookshelf. Curiosity got the better of him. He gently moved the shelf aside and discovered a narrow passage. It led to a room filled with documents, old photographs, and personal journals. His heart raced. He realized this was a private space, one she may not have intended for him to find. Yet he could not resist exploring, careful to leave everything as he found it. The journals told stories of a life he had only glimpsed before. She had grown up facing challenges, taking risks, and building her fortune through sharp decisions and careful planning. He read about the losses she had suffered, the people she had helped, and the moments of profound joy and sorrow that shaped her character. He was struck by the depth of her life, realizing that wealth had never defined her as much as her resilience and compassion did. Among the papers, he found correspondence with charities, records of investments meant to help struggling families, and even letters from people whose lives she had changed without them ever knowing who had helped them. The realization humbled him. This was a woman who had used her power not to dominate, but to quietly uplift others. The discovery shifted something inside him, and he felt a newfound respect and admiration. Later that evening, during dinner, he hesitated but decided to ask her about some of the stories he had found. She looked at him thoughtfully, a faint smile playing on her lips. She admitted that she had always preferred to keep these things private, but she was pleased that he had taken an interest. They talked late into the night about philanthropy, responsibility, and the ways wealth could be used to make a meaningful difference in the world. He felt more connected to her than ever before, understanding her beyond appearances. Over the next few days, he began noticing other unusual details. Certain rooms were locked with intricate codes, safes were hidden behind paintings, and there were areas filled with items that seemed personal and important. Every discovery added layers to his understanding of her life. She was not only a wealthy woman, but also a meticulous guardian of her history and accomplishments. Each secret he uncovered felt like a gift, a glimpse into a world of experiences he had never imagined. He also observed her daily routines more closely, noticing habits and quirks that spoke of decades of experience and wisdom. She spent time reviewing documents, making calls, and planning charitable endeavors, but she always made room for him in her life, inviting him to share thoughts, participate in small projects, and learn from her decisions. He realized that she trusted him in ways few people ever had, a sign of the deepening bond between them. One afternoon, while tending to the garden with her, he asked about her early years in business, how she managed to succeed in a male-dominated industry. She shared stories of perseverance, negotiation, and calculated risks, painting a vivid picture of her journey. He listened intently, asking questions and learning lessons he knew would shape his own approach to life. She seemed to take pride in his curiosity and the respect with which he approached her experiences. As he spent more time exploring the mansion and its secrets, he began to see the intersection between her wealth and her humanity. The journals revealed moments of loneliness, mistakes, and regrets, reminding him that despite appearances, she was human like anyone else. It made their relationship feel more balanced, not defined by money or age, but by understanding, empathy, and shared values. He also discovered that she had prepared for contingencies, legal documents, financial plans, and instructions for charitable foundations she managed. The level of detail and foresight amazed him. He realized that marrying her meant entering not just a wealthy household, but a legacy of thoughtful planning and impact. He felt a sense of responsibility, knowing that his actions and decisions could influence how her life's work would continue. At the same time, she observed him with curiosity and appreciation. She noted how he approached each discovery with humility, how he treated the staff and the estate with respect, and how his genuine interest went beyond material fascination. She felt reassured that she could trust him not just as a companion, but as someone who could honor her life and values. Their relationship deepened, founded on mutual respect and an understanding of each other's true character. One evening, while reviewing a set of photographs and letters, he noticed a few that hinted at challenges she had faced more recently: conflicts with distant relatives, financial misunderstandings, and personal betrayals. The revelation was sobering. He realized that wealth did not shield her from hardship, and that the complexities of her life extended beyond what he had imagined. He felt both concern and admiration, recognizing her resilience in facing difficulties quietly and with dignity. He brought up a few questions gently, and she spoke candidly about the obstacles, the difficult decisions she had to make, and the careful balance she maintained in protecting her estate and her values. He listened, offering insight when asked, but mostly absorbing the lessons of experience and strategy that she shared. It became clear that the bond they had was not only emotional, but intellectual, built on trust, respect, and shared problem-solving. Days turned into weeks as he continued to explore both her world and the nuances of her character. Each day brought new discoveries: hidden art collections, letters from old friends, records of charitable contributions, and even items that reflected her personal passions and hobbies. Every piece added depth to his understanding, reinforcing his admiration for her life's work and the person she was. He began to see parallels between their lives. Despite the differences in age and wealth, both had faced challenges. Both had pursued goals with determination, and both sought genuine connection and understanding in a world that often judged too quickly. These realizations strengthened their relationship, moving it beyond appearances and into a space of authenticity and mutual respect. The mansion itself became a classroom, a place where he could learn not only about her history and wealth, but also about resilience, strategy, and the quiet power of thoughtful decision-making. She guided him, encouraged questions, and welcomed his curiosity, creating a dynamic that was both educational and deeply personal. He felt honored to be part of this world, not as a guest or observer, but as someone who could contribute meaningfully and grow alongside her. The days following his discoveries of the hidden rooms and journals brought a sense of awe and learning, but also unease. He could tell there was still more to uncover, layers of her life that she had guarded even more closely. One evening, while walking through a quiet corridor of the mansion, he noticed a locked cabinet tucked in a corner of the study. Something about it felt different, important. He hesitated before touching it, uncertain if he should pry further into her private affairs, but his curiosity got the better of him. Inside the cabinet, he found files detailing her health. The documents included recent test results, doctor's notes, and schedules for treatments that she had kept private even from family. His heart sank. He realized that despite her vitality and elegance, she was facing serious health challenges. The thought of her vulnerability struck him deeply. She had married him not for care or assistance, but because she genuinely valued his presence. Yet now he understood that she was quietly dealing with burdens he had never imagined. He spent the evening wrestling with his emotions. He did not want to alarm her or make her feel exposed, but he knew he could not ignore the situation. At the same time, he felt a sense of responsibility and concern, realizing that the woman who had chosen him as a companion needed more than friendship and admiration. She needed understanding, support, and empathy. The next morning, he carefully approached her, trying to choose his words with care. He expressed his concern gently, assuring her that his respect and admiration for her were not diminished by what he had found, but heightened. She looked at him with surprise, then a soft smile. She admitted that she had been aware of his exploration and appreciated his sensitivity. She explained that she had not shared the details with anyone because she did not want to be treated differently, and she valued being seen for who she was, not just her health condition. Their conversation deepened their connection further. He listened as she spoke about the challenges of aging, the difficulties of maintaining independence, and the importance of dignity in facing vulnerability. He shared his thoughts and feelings honestly, admitting that he had been overwhelmed by the responsibility and concerned about their relationship. She reassured him that her trust in him was genuine, and that his care, respect, and honesty meant more than any help he could provide. Over the next few days, he noticed changes in their daily life. He began assisting with small tasks, learning the balance between supporting her and respecting her independence. He accompanied her to medical appointments not as a caretaker, but as a companion who valued her perspective and strength. Each visit was a lesson in patience, empathy, and understanding, and he found himself growing emotionally and mentally in ways he had never anticipated. At the same time, he continued to discover more about her personal life and history. Hidden letters revealed conflicts with distant relatives who questioned her decisions and intentions. Some documents described legal challenges related to her estate, matters that required careful navigation to protect her assets and legacy. He realized that wealth did not shield her from difficulties, and that part of their partnership would be facing these challenges together with honesty and integrity. One afternoon, while sorting through some files in her private office, he stumbled upon a folder labeled with a familiar but mysterious name. Inside, he found letters and legal documents that revealed a long-standing dispute with a family member who sought to contest her inheritance. The situation was complex, involving decades-old contracts, legal loopholes, and emotional entanglements. The realization was sobering. He understood that entering her life meant becoming part of a story that was far more intricate than he had ever imagined. He approached her carefully, aware of the sensitivity of the matter. She listened as he spoke, grateful for his discretion and insight. She shared the history of the dispute, explaining how she had managed it quietly to protect her peace and the people who depended on her. He admired her strength, realizing that the challenges of her life were not merely financial but deeply personal and emotionally taxing. It was a stark contrast to the simple struggles of his own life, yet he felt empowered by the opportunity to support her thoughtfully. The weeks that followed tested their bond. He found himself involved in delicate conversations with lawyers, coordinating with staff to ensure confidentiality, and learning how to navigate situations that required tact and careful judgment. Each step brought new lessons, and he grew increasingly aware of the depth of responsibility that came with being part of her life. Yet he also found joy in being trusted, in contributing meaningfully, and in the shared problem-solving that strengthened their partnership. In the midst of these challenges, their emotional connection deepened. They spent quiet evenings discussing hopes, fears, and memories, sharing stories that had never been told to anyone else. He learned about her moments of doubt, her regrets, and her dreams for the future, and he realized that true intimacy went beyond wealth, appearance, or convenience. It was about understanding, acceptance, and shared experience. One evening, as they sat together in the library, he brought up a concern he had been carrying, the possibility that the ongoing health issues and family disputes could create tension or misunderstandings between them. She took his hand gently, reassuring him that their relationship was built on trust and mutual respect. She explained that while life would inevitably bring challenges, they had chosen to face them together, not as an obligation, but as a conscious decision to support and understand one another. The following days brought moments of surprise and reflection. He found himself learning about her private charitable efforts, initiatives that had helped countless people without recognition. She introduced him to individuals who had benefited from her support, allowing him to witness firsthand the quiet impact she had made. The experience humbled him, showing that wealth and power could be used for meaningful good, and that she had done so with integrity and discretion. He also noticed subtle changes in himself. He became more confident, thoughtful, and patient. He learned to listen actively, to consider perspectives beyond his own, and to approach challenges with empathy rather than fear. The mansion, once a symbol of wealth and mystery, had become a place of growth, reflection, and shared discovery. The challenges they faced together strengthened their bond, transforming the marriage from a surprising choice into a partnership built on genuine care and understanding. One morning, while reviewing her personal documents with her permission, he discovered a series of letters from old friends expressing gratitude and admiration. Many wrote of how her actions had changed their lives, often without them ever knowing the source of the help. He realized that her life had been filled with quiet acts of kindness and courage, and that the depth of her character was far more significant than any wealth or status. He felt honored to be part of her world, not just as a companion, but as someone who could witness and appreciate the full scope of her life. The months following the students' discoveries and the challenges they faced together brought a sense of transformation for both of them. He had become a part of her world, not merely as a husband, but as a confidant, partner, and collaborator. Their days were filled with meaningful conversations, shared decisions, and moments of quiet reflection. Each experience brought them closer, deepening trust and mutual respect. He began to assist her more actively in her philanthropic projects. Together, they reviewed charitable foundations, coordinated community programs, and even started new initiatives that reflected their shared values. She encouraged his ideas, valuing his perspective and fresh energy, while he admired her experience, wisdom, and the thoughtfulness she put into every decision. Their partnership became a dynamic collaboration, blending youthful curiosity with seasoned insight. In the mornings, they would walk through the gardens, discussing plans for the day and sharing stories from the past. He learned more about her life as a young woman, the challenges she faced in a competitive world, and the quiet victories that had defined her journey. She listened to his aspirations, his goals and his dreams, offering guidance and encouragement without imposing control. It was a balance that nurtured growth, understanding, and mutual admiration. One day, while reviewing her personal journals together, he stumbled upon entries that revealed her hopes for the future, projects she wanted to start, communities she wanted to impact, and legacies she hoped to leave behind. He realized that marrying her was not just about companionship, but about becoming part of something larger than themselves. He felt inspired, motivated, and determined to honor her vision while contributing his own energy and ideas. As they worked side by side, he noticed subtle changes in himself. He became more confident in decision-making, more patient in dealing with challenges, and more empathetic toward others. Her guidance and trust allowed him to explore his potential, not as a student struggling to survive, but as a person capable of making meaningful contributions. Each day brought lessons, both practical and personal, shaping him in ways he had never imagined. They also spent evenings together in the mansion, enjoying simple pleasures. Reading by the fire, sharing meals, and discussing books, music, and art became cherished routines. They laughed at shared jokes, comforted each other in moments of worry, and celebrated small successes. Their relationship was no longer defined by wealth or age, but by connection, trust, and a deep understanding of each other's hearts. Friends and acquaintances gradually began to notice the change in him. He carried himself with confidence, spoke with insight, and treated others with respect and kindness. They could see the influence of their partnership, a balance of experience and fresh perspective, and the way it had transformed both their lives. For her, it was a joy to witness his growth, knowing that her trust and guidance had contributed to his journey. The student also began exploring his own passions in new ways. Encouraged by her support, he pursued projects that combined his education with meaningful community work. Together, they funded scholarships, supported small businesses, and engaged in local initiatives that reflected their shared values. It was a partnership that extended beyond personal life, touching the lives of others and creating impact that neither could have achieved alone. At times, challenges arose. Family disputes, health concerns, and unexpected complications tested their patience and resilience. Yet each obstacle strengthened their bond, requiring communication, understanding, and a willingness to adapt. They faced these moments together, not as individuals burdened by responsibility, but as partners committed to supporting each other and navigating life's uncertainties with grace and integrity. One particularly quiet afternoon, they sat in the mansion's library, reflecting on the journey that had brought them together. He spoke of his initial doubts, the shock of their unlikely union, and the awe he felt discovering the depth of her life. She listened, smiling softly, acknowledging the courage it took for him to enter her world and embrace both the challenges and the opportunities. They realized that their story was not just about surprise or novelty, but about mutual growth, shared experiences, and the richness of human connection. The student came to understand that wealth was only a surface aspect of her life. The true richness lay in her character, her resilience, her compassion, and the way she had quietly shaped the lives of countless individuals. Being part of her life allowed him to witness and contribute to that impact, a responsibility he approached with reverence, dedication, and heartfelt intention. As the seasons changed, their bond continued to strengthen. They celebrated milestones together, both personal and professional, and reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. The mansion, once a symbol of wealth and mystery, had become a home filled with shared experiences, laughter, learning, and love. They had built a life that was not defined by expectations or appearances, but by authenticity, respect, and genuine partnership. He often thought back to the day he first met her in the bookstore, amazed at the unexpected path his life had taken. From a struggling student to a trusted companion and collaborator, the journey had been filled with surprises, lessons, and profound moments of connection. She had chosen him not for wealth or convenience, but for his heart, intelligence, and character, and together they had navigated the complexities of life with courage and empathy. Their story became an example of how human connection can transcend age, wealth, and societal expectations. It was a testament to the power of respect, trust, and understanding in building meaningful relationships. Each day brought new lessons, new experiences, and new reasons to value the journey they had embarked upon together. Life continued in a rhythm both comforting and dynamic. After months of navigating challenges and building understanding, the student and the millionaire woman began exploring new possibilities together. Their days were filled with planning projects, engaging with communities, and nurturing their personal bond. Every moment brought lessons, laughter, and reflection, deepening the connection that had started in a humble bookstore months ago. One morning, as sunlight filtered through the large windows of the mansion, they sat together over coffee discussing new charitable initiatives. The student suggested partnering with local schools to provide scholarships and mentoring programs for underprivileged youth. She listened attentively, her eyes reflecting pride and excitement at his ideas. She had always valued education and empowerment, and now, with his enthusiasm, she saw a way to make a lasting impact beyond her own efforts. The project quickly took shape. They visited schools, met students and teachers, and planned programs that would provide both financial support and guidance. The student found joy in witnessing the hope in the children's eyes, realizing how much even small gestures could change lives. She admired his energy, compassion, and ability to connect with people, qualities that reminded her why she had chosen him as a partner beyond mere companionship. Meanwhile, life in the mansion continued to unfold with a mixture of comfort and discovery. He spent mornings in the library, reading through historical documents and learning about her family's history, business ventures, and personal triumphs. Each discovery offered lessons in resilience, strategy, and empathy. He began to appreciate the depth of her experiences and the wisdom she had gained over decades. It was not just wealth that defined her, but the careful thought, ethical choices, and courage she had demonstrated throughout her life. They also devoted time to personal growth. She encouraged him to pursue studies and projects aligned with his passions, supporting his ideas and nurturing his confidence. He in turn brought fresh perspectives to her endeavors, helping her see new possibilities and approaches. The balance between experience and youth, wisdom and curiosity, became the foundation of their partnership, creating a dynamic that was both inspiring and transformative. One afternoon, while reviewing a list of potential scholarship candidates, they came across a young student struggling with family challenges and financial hardship. The story reminded the student of his own struggles, and he felt a deep connection to the young person's situation. Together, they decided to support the student, providing not only financial assistance but also mentorship and guidance. Witnessing the progress and hope in the young student's life was profoundly moving, and both felt a renewed sense of purpose in their shared efforts. Amid these activities, they continued to explore the mansion together, discovering art pieces, antiques, and personal mementos that told stories of her life. He marveled at the careful curation and the thought behind each item. These moments were not about wealth or possession, but about understanding her journey, her values, and the people she had impacted along the way. Every artifact, letter, and photograph deepened his respect and admiration, strengthening the bond that had grown between them. In quieter moments, they spent evenings sharing meals, reading together, and reflecting on their experiences. Conversations ranged from lighthearted topics to deep philosophical discussions about life, purpose, and legacy. He found comfort in these routines, appreciating the balance of intimacy and collaboration that defined their life together. She, in turn, valued his honesty, empathy, and the way he approached life with curiosity and sincerity. One weekend, they organized a community event at the mansion's gardens. Local families, students, and neighbors were invited to participate in activities, workshops, and discussions aimed at education and empowerment. The student played an active role, guiding visitors, sharing insights, and connecting with participants. She observed him with pride, recognizing his growth, confidence, and ability to inspire others. The event was a success, bringing joy and practical benefits to many, and reinforcing their shared vision of making a positive impact. During this time, they also faced unexpected challenges. Financial regulations, local politics, and logistical hurdles tested their patience and problem-solving abilities. Yet, they navigated each obstacle together, discussing options, weighing decisions, and finding solutions that upheld their values. These experiences strengthened their partnership, showing them that shared responsibility and trust could overcome difficulties while preserving their integrity. The student also began to understand the deeper layers of her life. He learned about her private struggles, past regrets, and moments of doubt. Each revelation added depth to his understanding of her character, reminding him that true wealth lay in resilience, wisdom, and compassion. He felt honored to witness her vulnerability and trusted that his support and respect were meaningful contributions to her life. At the same time, she learned more about him. She observed his dedication, humility, and ability to learn quickly. His perspective brought fresh energy to her projects, and his empathy inspired new approaches to her philanthropic work. She realized that their union had grown into a true partnership, where both contributed, learned, and evolved together. It was no longer about age, wealth, or background, but about mutual respect, shared purpose, and the joy of growing alongside one another. Life in the mansion had settled into a rhythm of purpose, learning, and shared experiences, yet surprises were never far away. One morning, the student discovered a small unmarked envelope slipped under the study door. Curious, he opened it and found letters from people he had never met, individuals whose lives had been quietly changed by her past generosity. The letters were filled with gratitude, stories of transformation, and expressions of hope. Each message left him both humbled and inspired, realizing the invisible impact she had made over decades. He shared the letters with her that evening, and she smiled softly, explaining that she had never sought recognition for her acts. She had always believed that helping others quietly without fanfare was the truest form of giving. Together, they read through the letters, discussing the people and communities she had helped. The student felt a renewed sense of purpose, inspired to participate more actively in her philanthropic work and to honor the trust she had placed in him. Over the next few weeks, they embarked on a new community initiative focused on education, healthcare, and mentorship programs. The student took the lead in planning logistics, communicating with local organizations, and mentoring students who needed guidance. She provided wisdom, connections, and oversight, ensuring that the projects aligned with her values and long-term goals. The partnership was seamless, a blend of energy, insight, and shared commitment. Amid these efforts, life within the mansion continued to be filled with learning and discovery. He explored rooms he had never visited, uncovering rare books, historical artifacts, and personal journals. Each find revealed another layer of her life, providing context to her decisions, her resilience, and the legacy she had built. The more he learned, the more he appreciated the depth of her experiences and the courage it had taken to navigate challenges while maintaining her principles. One evening, as they walked through the gardens, she shared a personal story from her youth, a moment when she had faced a career setback that could have ended her ambitions. She described the fear, doubt, and determination that had led her to persevere. The student listened attentively, understanding that her success had not been handed to her. It was earned through persistence, intelligence, and integrity. The revelation deepened his respect and admiration, reinforcing the genuine bond they shared. In the following weeks, they hosted a mentorship event for local youth, inviting students, teachers, and community leaders to participate. The student played an active role, guiding discussions, offering advice, and sharing his own experiences as a struggling student. She observed with pride, noting his growth in confidence, leadership, and empathy. The event was a success, leaving participants inspired and motivated, and it strengthened the student's sense of purpose and belonging in her world.